Welcome back. This is a fun and exciting episode for me. I was really pushing to get done the trip quilt, and so I have made huge amounts of progress on it. And I guess you'll have to wait and see as we go along to see how far I got and whether or not I finished. And also, I am going to be sharing another little side project that I was working on for a friend from church. And I worked on that in our trailer, so you get to hear about sewing in the trailer without being hooked up to power. So this is a fun and exciting episode. I hope you'll enjoy it. So I was excited to do a progress report and show you what I've gotten done here. And then as I was laying it out, I realized I screwed up. On the first row, you can see I did my sashing strip so that I'm going to be able to fold this over and join it together. When I did the next 3 rows, I forgot to put the sashing strip on. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's not like it's ruined. It wasn't a huge mistake. It's just now I have to go back and add that. It's another step. Again, not a huge deal, but darn it, I hate it when I get ahead of myself doing something and then realize that now I need to spend more time to do something more. So I was trying to finish this quickly so I could work on some of it while we're actually camping coming up, which I will still take it with me. As you saw, I showed, I have to cut away the little extra bits of batting that are in the seam. And so I have that to do. And that's kind of tedious work. That's great when you're just sitting by a campfire or just sitting in the trailer or something. So I will work on that, and then when we get back home, I will work on adding the sashing strip and getting that finished. So anyway, that's where I'm at. That's my progress and my goof. And we'll get back on it again. I got all of the strips put on the pieces that I had trimmed off the little batting sections. So now what I'm doing is, it's probably hard to see, but I've marked a line so I know where I want this to fold over, and then I folded it over and pressed while it was sitting there. And now I'm going to pin it to make sure it stays put, and then I'm going to stitch it. So that's the next part for this. Okay, here you can see I've got it all pinned. I'm going along the seam, and then I will pull them out as I get to them. You do have to be careful not to pin it to your ironing board, but it's actually pretty easy to do. And then you just stitch this, and I will show you what it looks like when we're done, because you will have a line of stitching that is going to show along this, but I am not worried about that. We'll see how it looks when I get it done. Okay, here's the section that's joined right there and right here. There's the seam on the front. And it would be this line on the back. So you can't really see any difference on the back. So that's one of the sections done. Just gotta get the others joined, and then I can start joining sections. Okay, I've been doing some stitching and some combining. There's the bottom half of the quilt all together. And then we have the top half of the quilt, which is together, and we have the sashing strip that needs to go up and be stitched down. But as far as I'm going to get on that tonight. So I'm going to finish that sashing strip, and then I will need to trim the top edge and combine, or excuse me, the bottom edge. Combine the top section with the bottom section, get that stitched down, and then I'll have the quilt together, and then just need to do the binding. This is really cool. It's so fun to see it actually together. Okay, so I have both halves done separately, and I realized I did something that wasn't the best. Have you ever thought, oh, I'm going to do something and I'm going to do it this way? And then you think about it a little more and go, no, actually it'd be better to do it this other way. And then you just end up doing it the first way anyway. That's what I did. So I did my bottom two pieces, and I had originally intended to do the top two pieces and then put the two halves together. Then when I thought about it, I thought if I have these two pieces together and I put the third section on there, I only have a quarter of the quilt underneath my machine. And then I can put the fourth section on, and again, I only have a quarter of the quilt under my machine. Instead, I put the two halves together, so I'm going to have half the quilt under my machine. So if you're doing quilt as you go and you're putting them together in rows, probably easier if you just do row, add a row, add a row, add a row, and build it as you go instead of doing it in sections and putting the sections together that way. So just a thought. Anyway, I'm going to work on getting this together. Whether it's a pain or not, it's still going to be done. One more join, then sashing, and then it's just down to binding. We're getting really close. Don't know how well this will show from over there, quilting the last little seam, but I can't set it here because the quilt would knock it on the floor. I am excited to say I have got my quilt top together. I actually got this together yesterday, and I was very excited about being done. Well, done except for binding. And I showed my husband, and he said, oh, that's great, but you're gonna put borders on it, right? I said no, because I was sure I didn't have enough fabric to do borders as well as binding, and I just wanted to be done. So I looked at my border so that I could, or my fabric, so that I could explain to him how I didn't have enough, and realized I probably did have enough if I wanted to do a small border on each side, not all the way around, but on the sides. And the more I looked at it, the more I thought, yeah, it would look better with a little bit of a border on the sides. So I now have to do borders on the side, so I'm not quite done with my top like I thought I was. It's always frustrating when quilts are bossy and tell you to do something different than what you feel like. But I also know if I don't do it, it will bug me later. So I'm going to take the time and do that. Also, on a funny note, I checked my measurements probably 38 times before cutting. It was very nerve-wracking to do the cutting because I knew I was close. And this is actually the fabric that I have left over. So 1/8 of an inch here, I think. Really, really close. So now I hope that as I put it together, I didn't screw anything up, because there is no more fabric left to fix anything. But I thought I'd share that funny. Okay, Keith had talked about me using my sewing machine while we were camping. So I did. I was supposed to set my timer for 15 minutes and then see how much power I used. And I forgot to set my timer because my lovely sister-in-law, Carrie, came out to the trailer And we sat and visited while I was sewing, and I sewed for like an hour and a half. Completely forgot about setting a timer or checking until I had been sewing for at least an hour. But it used very little power. And so now I'm going to work on the next part, which is pressing my fusible applique onto the back of the little quilt that I'm making. So I'm sorry I forgot to show any of the sewing, but here you can see I'm plugged in, and I have my little travel iron set up here. So I'm making the little pumpkin quilt. My iron is heating up, and I'm going to get the paper off my fusible appliques here. They will be stitched around, but this is just first figuring out where to set them. I suppose, even though I've done this before, I should probably have my pattern out to refer to it. Okay, so looking at my pattern. Yep, that's the right way. I'm very excited about the idea of being able to use the sewing machine. I really was skeptical that we would have enough power and that it wouldn't use too much, but it didn't. And so I'm very excited about the prospect of taking it with us when we go camping and not having to be hooked up to power. So let's see, we need a flower up there. We need a flower over here. We need a flower over there. Oh, got a little string on there, don't want that. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, and let's see, I should have a pressing cloth, which I don't technically have, but I have fabric that I have for the label, and I will use that as a pressing cloth. So we're going to start here with this pumpkin. Move that leaf a little bit, so let's put that back where it belongs. Let's do the one thing I found with the inverter being plugged into that is my iron doesn't have the cord in the center of the iron. It's off to the right here, so the cord wants to go this way, and the plug is over that way. Same thing with my sewing machine. When I set down here, the cord comes off here, and it does reach, just barely. I had to kind of crawl over it. But it would be much better if I'm set up on the other side with the cord going that way, not in the way of the person, you know, getting in and out. So I think in the future I will have an extension cord that I use so that I can run the cord from the inverter over here and then have things plugged in where they work really well, not just, oh look, that's the only spot it'll reach. Okay, let's do this one here. Okay, and then that's still up a little. We'll check everything to make sure it appears to be fused. Don't want the extra thread on there. And there we go. Now it is ready for stitching around all the cute little things. So much fun. So yay for being able to sew without being hooked up to power. That is so mind-blowing, and it's just amazing. One of my viewers, Carol, had mentioned, wouldn't it be nice if we had battery operated sewing machines? And I guess this kind of does make mine battery operated. Not exactly the way she meant, of course, but still very cool. Have a good day.